Welcome back to CIGTV News. We are deep in it. The 2025 elections are live and underway, plus the referendum. And I've got the man who's got all of the details with me, Mr. Wesley Howell. It's good to see you again. It's been a long day for you. How are you feeling? How are you holding up?
Good. I just want to see this part finished now. So we're watching the count come in just like everybody else. But the folks are out there getting it done. So,
well, how are you feeling right now? You said we've got some boxes. The counts have already begun.
Yeah.
Are all of the polls closed at this point, or are any of them going?
no, all polls are closed. A few of them went a little bit after 6 because they had some persons in line, and we have to poll them if they're already in there. But now we have the counts coming in. So first out of the gate is Newlands. So we have counts in for the candidates and for the referendum questions for the first box from Newlands, I think box number 3. As I was walking into the studio, the team back in the command center were processing calls from West Bay Central, West Bay South, and Georgetown North. So we'll have those counts for the first boxes for those districts coming out very shortly. So those will be updated on our website. I think it's probably important for me to add that it might be a bit confusing for folks that they're seeing high numbers of spoiled ballots in each particular section. So, for example, for National Lottery, there'll be a number for yes, a number for no, and then a number for spoiled. The spoiled actually is our indication that people just didn't vote for that question.
Okay.
But it didn't.
Abstaining.
They abstaining effectively. So rejected or spoiled is how we would deal with that. The rest of the ballot would count, and you can see that for the really high numbers that are coming through for some of the questions and also for the candidates.
That's excellent to know. Are there any other reasons why a ballot would be considered spoiled outside of an abstained vote?
Yeah, you have to work really hard to spoil a ballot, and I hope there's nobody cringing right now, but you only can vote for one candidate. So if you vote for all of the candidates, then you spoil the section for candidates. If you vote yes and no for every referendum question, then you would spoil that. Or indeed, if you leave the entire ballot paper blank, then you'll spoil the whole ballot paper. But like I said, you have to work really hard to spoil an entire ballot paper.
We are not challenging anyone to have tried that. Just want to make that clear.
Yeah.
So with these ballot boxes coming in, do we have any calls being made yet? Any announcements?
No, way too early.
Okay.
So the first box that was counted for Newlands was only 17% of the votes that were cast. So Newlands actually had 5 ballot boxes, 5 stations, plus 2 mobile boxes, plus a postal box. So there's a lot of counting left to go on yet.
Well, to that end, you said Newlands, one ballot box is only about 17%. What are you seeing in terms of the total turnout figure for the entire day? How are you feeling about how many people came out this year? I was just looking at our working age population, and that's just a little over 31,000. And I believe we had 25,000 registered.
Yeah.
So how are you feeling? That is an incredibly high percentage of the population that you managed to register to begin with. That's commendable to your office to getting that done. But in terms of the turnout as well, how are you feeling about that today?
No, fantastic to have over 18,000 people come out and vote. Really great. We still have some work to do on our young people, aged 18 to 23. We still need to get them registered. Some 2,000 odd not registered, but there'll be time to focus on that after we finish with this count and we move on there. But yeah, great turnout. And the teams are now plugging through and doing those counts, making sure that everybody in the room is confident of those numbers, and then we can release them out to the public and go from there.
That is amazing. Again, over 18,000. Let's just round it up to 20 for right now. Out of 25,000, that has got to be an incredibly high percentage. I would be curious to see how that even relates to the rest of the Caribbean in general, because we see in other places where people maybe get 40% of the voting population, and we've managed to get a majority. So commendable once again to your organization. So where are you seeing that highest turnout, or where have you seen today those highest turnouts? And some of the places where you might have seen the lowest turnouts as well. Are you noticing any differences in some of those districts?
Cayman Brac, East and West were really high, 80% turnout, so that's amazing. And they have 5 candidates running there, so we expected to have some significant turnout, but 80% was really surprising for us. Some of the other districts are high 70% as well, so yeah, really great when we think that some of our neighbors have average turnout in national elections is around 40-50% turnout, and we don't have mandatory voter registration and we don't have mandatory voting. So those numbers are legitimate interest. People want to vote, and they stepped up and did their job.
On the statistics page, I'm seeing as well some high turnouts in East End, in North Side as well. We also, you mentioned Cayman Brac as well,
Yeah.
versus some of the lower turnout areas, West Bay West, I believe, Georgetown West, Boddentown East. Do you think
West Bay South.
West Bay South,
Which is our largest district, so yeah.
So what do you think is contributing to that difference? Is it just the higher number of candidates who are running, as you alluded to with Cayman Brac?
Yeah.
Or are you seeing any other difference, or have thought about any other marketing differences?
So brand new for the Cayman Islands this time around was the combined ballot of candidates and referendum questions. I think the fact that we had a joined up ballot actually enticed a whole lot more people to vote. So some people are voting because they're really passionate about referendum questions, and some people are passionate about referendum and candidates, and some people are only passionate about candidates and not a referendum bit. So we're seeing all that mixed in these higher numbers that we're getting out, and I think it's really a good way to hear from the public. Yeah.
Okay, so more so considering it in terms of an overperformance in those higher districts,
Yeah.
rather than perhaps an underperformance in some of the lower performing districts.
Yeah.
What are some of the key learnings outside of the fact that putting a referendum with the vote clearly works for us?
Yeah,
It has
yeah,
clearly increased turnout. What are the other key learnings that you've observed throughout the day? Things that, next time you do this, after you take a long, long nap, you just take all the time to rest and recoup. What are some of those things that you think you'll put in place for next time?
So what worked really well, and I'm going to give you some kudos here, like your team at Department of Comms have been fantastic. Just looking back, like I did today, at all of our messaging going back to December, when we're talking about voter registration, the consistency of the messaging, the professionalism, and the multitude of channels that we're using to reach people, I think that helped us all the way through. From the time we started saying, our deadline to voter registration is coming, this is how a joined up ballot looks, this is how you mark your ballot, these things would count, these things wouldn't count, here are your polling stations, here's when we open. The messaging we put out across a multitude of platforms really worked with that voter education. And what I saw was the candidates and the parties amplifying our messaging by reposting and so on. So yeah, kudos to you and your team for fantastic support for our office, and we're really grateful for that.
Thank you so much for that. We appreciate it. And of course, there's no better way to celebrate that than being able to celebrate the large turnout
Yeah.
that we have had.
Yeah.
What about the official announcements? You said that it is a little early for us to start thinking about who those winners are going to be. When do we think? Do we think about midnight we'll start to be hearing those announcements?
Yeah, it took a while to get going with the first boxes. So the first few hundred ballots have been counted. Usually what happens is when you get over the first jitters of the first box, you can move on a little faster. So we're still looking for the count to be done. I'm still hoping for midnight, just because I want to go to bed at a reasonable hour. Sometime tomorrow morning.
Sincerely.
But yeah, so we're going to go through, but we can't go any faster than the confidence in the room is,
Yes.
because the way that we count our ballots, the returning officer, the deputy returning officer, picks it from the ballot box. They call the numbers out, and then they show it to the room. And that whole transparency aspect means that folks can see how the ballot was marked, and they all mark their own tally sheets. So when we agree on the numbers, we agree on the numbers, and we can move on to the next box.
Are you confident that what the overseas observers are witnessing will reinforce confidence in our democratic process?
No, absolutely. Not to say that we don't have bits that we can improve. We've been asking for some improvements to the Elections Act for probably going on 8 years now, that we've been asking successive administrations for some tweaks and some fundamental changes as well. So I look forward to having some of those recommendations. And as good as we are, we can always improve. So I look forward to those too. So absolutely.
Amazing. So where can we go to find the official results? We've got stats.elections.ky.
Yeah.
Is that where, everyone should just look to that resource consistently?
Absolutely. And the most glamorous one is the graphical moving map bit. That one has, fancy graphs and so on. A lot of our data people want to get into the tables, and we have one of those too. So we have that table Excel spreadsheet that we're dumping updates on as they come in as well. So yeah, stats. And if you don't know how to get to that, then go to elections.ky. There'll be a link down for live statistics. Click on that, and you're into all of the options that are available.
Easy to access. All you got to do is stats.elections.ky and or elections.ky, as you mentioned. Like you said, you've got the resource for the data folks who want to get into the weeds, in addition to those data visualizations. For those of us who prefer, seeing the big picture. What would you say in terms of hearing from various outlets or word of mouth? If someone says they've heard something at 9:30 tonight, well, that's around now. If someone says they've heard a winner at 10:30 tonight, can you definitively say, that's likely to be misinformation? How can people identify that what they're recognizing is real?
So our returning officers won't call it until the last box is counted. Now, in some cases, the results might be so overwhelming that the remaining box has so few ballots in it that you know how it's going to end up. But we don't count it until we don't call it until we've counted it. But yeah, some folks will make their own reckoning and say, we only have 250 ballots left to count, and someone is leading by 400 ballots. Then there's no way. But the official announcement comes from the returning officer as it relates to candidates. The official announcement as it relates to the referendum comes from our command center, and we'll push that out on our channels.
Okay, so stats.elections.ky, that is the place to go to if you want to stay up to date with everything that is happening. Mr. Howell, thank you so much.
A pleasure.
It has been a pleasure to speak with you and to learn so much about the elections process. Like you said, education this year has been really helpful, I believe. So thank you again, and may you please have a great nap tomorrow, sleep, and all of the rest.
We're up early because the ballots from Cayman are coming over on the first flight, so we're going to receive them at the airport and deal with them over here as well. So yeah.
Okay, long day ahead as
long day tomorrow as well.
Perhaps the weekend. Perhaps the weekend.
It is a long weekend.
Thanks so much again. This is CIGTV News. I'm Elizabeth Charles. Remember, we are going to be keeping you up to date with the most accurate government news right here. Stats.elections.ky is also the website that you can visit to see the latest in the polls being counted. Until tomorrow, where we've got some great headlines coming up for you, be sure to stay tuned. Again, for CIGTV News, I'm Elizabeth Charles. Good night. Thank you so much.